got somebody joining us. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are in attendance. A few housekeeping rules, if we can, please, before we begin. If members of the public in attendance need to use the facilities, these are located at the ground floor, opposite the Bewitched Cafe, which we passed on the way in. If there is a fire alarm, please leave the building by the nearest fire exit and make your way to the front of the multi-storey car park. If the alarm is an intermittent sound, this indicates a lockdown. Attendees should stay in their seats and await further instruction. Before we start the meeting, please can I remind everyone that this is a meeting held in public and the audio recording may be made available on the website and in due course. Please therefore speak clearly into your microphones when asked to do so. Item 1 on the agenda then is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We do have apologies from Councillor Rangzeb.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? None of these. Thank you. Item 3 is the declaration to make representation as a ward councillor. Councillor Mood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will be making representations on the first item.
Thank you. Can I just ask, can you hear this at the back? You can. I just want to make sure because they're new mics. So. Yeah. I think because they're new mics, if we can move them closer when you're talking, please.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No, we've got it anyway. So thank you very much. So at that point, you'll go, and you're going to speak on that item, are you?
Yes, I will. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Fine. Anybody else? No. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Item 4 then relates to the minutes of the meeting on the 19th of March and the 9th of April 2024. So we'll take the first one. The committee is asked to approve the minutes of the 19th of March 2024. Yep, could I have a proposer for those? Who was here? Councillor Rush and a seconder. Councillor Moody, you right with that? Okay, are they all agreed? Yep. And the 9th of April 2024. I need a proposer for that one. Councillor Rush again, seconder. Yep. Hey, Councillor Bond, thank you very much. And all agreed? Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. Item 5 then relates to development control and enforcement matters. Item 5.1 is for 551 Lincoln Road. And I'd like to ask Connor Lycan, our officer, to introduce the item when you're ready. Thank you.
Afternoon, members, and thank you, Chair. So the first item on the agenda is 551 Lincoln Road. The proposals for a change of use from takeaway, which is a sui generis use class, to an adult gaming centre, again, which falls under a sui generis use class. So starting with the update report, as of today, there are 38 representations made, 25 were objections, and then 13 in support. We received 2 more this morning, but there were no new material observations were raised. All that was covered within the report already is fine. And then since then, we've had 2 reconsultations come in. So the first from the design and out crime team. They have no objection and they're happy with the measures that have been put in place within the operational management plan. So in terms of the lockdown systems, CCTV, lone working, etc. And then from the pollution control team, they have no objection. They're happy with the noise assessment submitted. And they're happy with the further information from the agent that they submitted, information regarding sort of like noise rates in existing units around the centre and some case studies. So yeah, they have no objection there. And then since the report was written, the full consent for the external alterations to the shop front and then the advert consent for the advertisement, so 1 fascia sign and 1 hanging sign, they've both been permitted. So this application here today is solely for the change of use. So starting with the location, it's located within the New England Milford area. It's located within the local centre of the Triangle / Lincoln Road. So you can sort of see in red on the right hand side outlined is the application site, so directly opposite the triangle. And then just a reminder about the principal development. So this is what the change of use will sort of adhere by. So we're looking at policy LP12 of the Peterborough Local Plan. And then, as mentioned in the report, the recent appeal references regarding adult gaming centres as a recent. So for more local context, outlined in blue is the existing local centre boundary. In brown are the local list of heritage assets nearby, and then you can see that application site in the bottom right. And then the two red circles are two existing betting/gambling shops that are located within the local centre. So you've got Ladbrokes just north of the site, and then on the western side of the local centre, you've got Paddy Power. So it just sort of gives a rough indication of what existing is there at the moment. In terms of other units, it's really mainly commercial downstairs, some office space, then a lot of first floor accommodation is residential, which is a common sort of arrangement within these local and district centres. And in a bit of a wider context as well, it's important to note that down south, about 600 metres in the Lincoln Road District Centre, there are two existing adult gaming centres, both operated by Merkel Slots, which again is the end user for this application site. So it's just important to bear in mind, I guess, the locational density of these units. So these are some images of the site. So the existing unit is a former Golden Dragon takeaway. It should be noted about the existing takeaway is now vacant, and it has no restrictions on times or open hours, and there's no conditions restricting movement or whatsoever. And then on the left-hand side is just some images of the surrounding street scene. So the off-street car parking to the front, the large walkways, etc., and then some of the additional retail units surrounding the area. So this is the existing floor plan. So the ground floor, typical takeaway arrangement. So the kitchen and counter to the front, and all the store areas to the rear, and then first floor accommodation at first floor. And then the proposed site plan. So this just sort of outlines the cycle parking that's been agreed to the rear, so access via the side passage. And that meets the Highways Authority's standards in terms of the provision of cycle spaces, which accommodates for the lack of allocated parking for this unit. And then the proposed floor plans. So the proposed ground floor is the gaming centre venue itself. And then the first floor is more office space, staff areas, just private areas. So the ground floor is where all the business will take place, essentially. And that covers everything. Yeah, so back to you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just need to go back to item 2. Councillor Antunes. Councillor Antunes? Yeah, I need to go back to item 2 to ask if you've got any declarations of interest, because you missed that part of the agenda. I said I need to go back to item 2 because I asked for declarations of interest, but you weren't here, so I need to go back to you to give you a chance to declare anything.
Yeah, I have no interest in this. Thank you.
Okay. So we have some speakers registered to speak on this item. Firstly, we'll ask the ward councillor, Councillor Mahmood, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mahmood, welcome. You, as a councillor, ward councillor, you have 10 minutes in total to address committee. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you have about 30 seconds left if you reach that stage. And please remain in your seat when you're finished to take any questions, all right? After that, please can you then go into the public gallery until the actual case is finished, okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
So when you're ready.
Yeah, so I put in an objection to this application because I do not agree with the officer's recommendation. I strongly feel that this development would have an adverse impact to the local area. We have a number of adult gaming centres within the ward and within the close proximity to this proposal. I don't see the need of additional venues for this case. And yeah, I strongly feel that it contradicts the the local plan in that it would not promote a positive development and sustainable growth within the area. So I would like to ask members to please reject or overturn officer recommendations and not give permission to be changed to adult gaming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mahmood. Members, have any questions, please, for Councillor Mahmood? Councillor Bond. Somebody's coming.
Superstar, thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman. So it's just about around the fact you say that you don't think it will enhance the local community. Surely something is better than nothing in terms of it's currently a derelict Chinese takeaway. Do you have any thoughts on that? Surely something would be better than just a derelict building, basically.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm all for a positive development and for it to be used, but I do not agree for it where I see that there is a potential where instead of us going forwards, we're actually going backwards in that sense. The other thing as well to note is within the area that there are some nurseries which are not far from it, and it doesn't represent good for the area.
Thank you, Councillor Skipstead.
Isn't it? Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Can you explain how you think it would have an adverse effect on the local community with this gaming shop?
Yeah, thank you. I think primarily for me is the fact that the nature of what these sort of venues could attract with regards to a lot of adults and what have you, and the fact that it's actually they could, if they wanted to operate it for 24 hours. There is no restriction for them in that regard. I know that currently there is no restriction. If there was a takeaway there, they could be open 24 hours a day if they wanted to. But yeah, no, it's just I'm just a bit conscious that the type of crowds that these venues tend to attract wouldn't really reflect us going in the right direction.
Anybody else that I missed? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. I'm intrigued to know is it your view or is it a view based on planning policy? Because I haven't heard you say anything based on planning policy other than your view of the situation as an individual or ward councillor. Because the planning officer has gone through policy and says it complies with policy. So you would have to come up with something that says, because you said you disagree with the recommendation. So on what basis in planning terms do you disagree with the recommendation to grant approval? And by the way, I would expect adults to go, not children. So because there was a reference to nurseries, I'm not sure what relevance that has, but there we go.
Right. Yeah. So with regards to policy, I feel that this proposal is in fact contradicting policy 16, which talks about amenity and talks about the impact of a development. So that is what I'm citing. In those terms, I don't think it is in line with that. You could, of course, take a balanced view and take it from there. With regards to nurseries, small children going by is what my train of thought. But yeah, no, it would be be used by adults is my understanding. I think.
Is it on? Ah, there we go. I'm sure the officer will be able to come back on LP16, particularly to explain why he disagrees with you. But I understand why you might think that. But again, I think it's just your view. It's not a widely held view. Okay, thanks.
At all? With any answer?
No.
Okay. Getting used to these mics. Sorry, Councillor Skipstead, do you have another question? I need you to put your mic on.
Question of what was written in the report. Is that for now or is it for later? I don't know, because it's something that's written I don't find very understandable.
Okay. Right. Just to explain, if your question is about what's in the report or for officers, that comes later in the
Okay,
agenda,
thank you.
in the process.
That's
At the
fine.
moment, we're purely asking the person who's at the table, in this case, Councillor Mood, any questions on his address to us at the moment. So we'll come to you, don't worry. So Councillor Rush, I saw your hand go up.
Thank you, Chair. You said this new establishment could attract antisocial behaviour. Where is the evidence for that statement? And also, there are other sites in the area. What you mentioned, have they ever had any problems with antisocial behaviour?
Sorry, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Was that it? For Councillor Mood? Just a quick one for me then, please, if I could. Going on from Councillor Rush's question to you, the police did not raise any concern at all regarding possible antisocial behaviour. Do you have any particular comment on that to make?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised that the police have not raised any sort of objection in this regard. Considering that we do have cases of people who are and about. So yeah, I'm actually quite surprised that they haven't really raised any concern. Given the fact that it are other venues that have experienced issues with with drugs and stuff. So yeah, I'm really surprised that they haven't raised any sort of concerns with regard to antisocial behaviour.
Thank you. I'm just going to go around, make sure nobody else got a question for you. That's all. Doesn't appear so. Thank you, Councillor Mood. If you could now retire to the public gallery while we carry on. Thank you. Right to call now, please, Abid Hussain. Good afternoon, Mr. Hussain. Welcome. You will have 5 minutes when you're ready to address committee. The Democratic Service Officer will let you know when you've got 30 seconds left if you get to that point. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm from local area. I help out with any work that needs doing within the area, and I have been working close with the police as well with drug issues and so forth. I've just come from a 13-hour shift, okay, just for this, because I don't want my area to be deprived. Now, I've only got 5 minutes, so I've made quick, brief notes. So Bournemouth and Nottingham University, okay? So they have done studies which show that the number of betting shops relates to a higher crime rate within an area, okay? The crime rate they studied was increased by 4% per betting shop. Every one betting shop, shoplifting increased by 16%, theft from person by 10%, antisocial behavior by 7%, public disorder by 7%, and bike theft by 6%. This is also described as crack and cocaine by the media. Now, these outlets, they're limited on how many machines they can have. So this is why they open several outlets. A player, by study, can lose £100 in 20 seconds. So that £100 they've lost, they're not going to spend it on their family or anybody else. So that area is only going to get further deprived. Also, studies have showed with these betting shops, they pay a higher rates in rent. So it affects the local other businesses. You can just go outside town centre. Well, my family has a business there, and we have seen the town centre decline day by day. Everybody here can go in town centre and you will see it's declined, right? You will see people loitering about outside, smoking, leaving fags outside. You can go on Lincoln Road, outside these outlets, you will see bottles outside of alcohol. I have got nothing against alcohol, as long as it's drunk responsibly. So there's kids that actually go by. You've got Thomas Deacon Academy, which school kids walk by. What do they see? They see these individual groups of individuals just standing there. Do you not feel that that might be intimidating to kids? Because we live in the area, we see this day in, day out. And I've got several shops that are located nearby those, the Golden Dragon, where the betting shop wants to open. There's already 2 more betting shops. How many further betting shops do we require? The 3 betting shops, they're further down on Lincoln Road. If somebody wants to bet, they've already got 2 more options. So why do they require a further one? What is the need? And also studies have showed that they don't really add to an area. They don't bring anything.
Okay, good, thank you. Questions then, please, members. To Mr. Hussain. Anybody? Councillor Rush.
Could you just repeat? You said that they could spend £100 in how long?
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Do you know what the maximum amount they can bet on at one particular time in these shops?
This is studied by the universities.
You said that this could bring high crime rates within the area. Are there any high crime rates around the other, like the betting shops and the other similar shops in the area?
As I mentioned before, you only need to take a visit down the town centre and see how it's declined over the years. I'm born and bred here, and I've seen it decline. I don't want to see it decline further. I've seen Lincoln Road decline. I don't know how much more evidence we require.
You said you said the area's declined, but my question was about crime rates. Is there a big issue with crime rates in that area?
Well, if a family has, I'll give you a prime example. My family member was renting out to a family, and the husband had lost all his money on betting, and he couldn't even pay his rent or feed his family. This is one of the reasons we don't want furthermore outlets like this. I can bring my family member in if it requires for evidence to say that.
Okay, Councillor Antunes.
You mentioned the study. Can you tell us the sample size that the study refers to and whether it's broad within the UK?
I only had 5 minutes, but I'm more than happy to email the study.
Unfortunately, that needed to be in before the meeting. We can't. It
Well,
needed to be
that's
part of
fine,
the
but I've
thing
only
to
got
mention.
5 minutes. So for me to go through that
Yeah.
whole study, I think I'd need more than 5 minutes.
No, what I mean is that should have been presented to officers before the meeting.
I have got a letter
Yeah, it's
here.
too late now.
of-
It needed to
of
be
objection.
so we could all read it in advance, so we could ask you questions. Would have been useful. It's too late to do it now.
I'm a working individual.
We'll,
No,
as a lot of us.
just give me. I'm a working individual.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this in my spare time.
Yeah.
And me gathering this evidence, going shop to shop, just getting signatures. I come back at 11:30. Sorry. I come back from work, had a quick shower, got ready, went visited all shops, and I come straight here. This is how much I care about the area.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's doubting that. The fact is, if you've got information, it has to go to planning prior to the planning meeting to be taken into consideration. You can't bring it on the day; it's too late. We don't have a chance to look at it. We don't have a chance to consider it. We don't have a chance to ask officers questions on it. So, you've got it. It's too late now to bring it at the meeting. We haven't got enough time to look at it. As
Well,
you said.
I do have a letter here, anyways.
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much. Antunes, you've had your answer on that. Anybody else got a question? Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chairman. So I appreciate you're very passionate about your area and that you spoke very well to represent your community, but we have to make decisions based on planning policy for the large part. So other than what the local council alluded to, do you have any other planning policies that you're aware of that it contradicts? I do appreciate you're not a councillor, so.
If I had further information about that, obviously I'd bring that in. But I gave you more than enough information that are studies that showed crime rate and so forth. And we can only look at the crime rate within the area anyway. You can ask the police force for the crime rate, and it will show how it's increased day by day. And crime rate is only increased because these individuals lose their money and they look for other means to get that money.
Okay, you mentioned crime rate, yet the police have no objection to this. So you just said ask the police. The police have been asked as a statutory consultee and have said they don't have an issue. So what's your answer to that? The police said there isn't a problem.
Yeah, so when we saw that report, we were taken back by the report because we've had several meetings. I personally have several meetings with Leslie around about the area anyway. So when we saw that study, we were actually taken back because we know that the crime rate is pretty high. And they themselves in meetings, Leslie has herself said that the crime rate is increasing day by day. So I'm not sure how they've come to that conclusion. We were flabbergasted.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, just one quick question. I just want to clarify something, and I'm hoping that when we get to the actual agent, we get some clarification from there too. Is you mentioned betting all the time, but there's a distinct difference between slot machines and betting shops. What's your view? Because you keep saying there's lots of betting shops. Betting shop is not a slot machine.
So I'll help you on that one. Either one of them, there's only one winner, and there's only one loser. I hope that helps you answer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Skipstead.
Can you say anything about the noise levels of the betting shops that you in your area, in terms of the noise outside, and how that might disturb the local areas? Thank you.
You only need to go down Lincoln Road to the outlets that are already there, and you will see groups of men just standing there, smoking, drinking, so forth, and obviously making noise. You just need to drive down and you see it. It's pretty clear.
Councillor Rush.
I think when you say just drive down Lincoln Road, it's not just these establishments, where there's groups of people standing there. You only got to look outside the cafes and the shops, and you'll see groups of people standing there anyway, smoking and drinking. So it's not just these betting establishments that is the problem.
Well, coffee shop, I'm sure you've been to one, I've been to one. You go there and you sit with your friends, you have a conversation and so forth. Betting shops, if you're standing outside and drinking, I don't think as a means of that's a bit more intimidating than having a coffee, I would have thought.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions at all for Mr. Hussain? No. Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Thank you. Right. Okay, we'll move to the next stage now, which is questions for officers or the legal team. Oh, I do apologise. I do have another speaker. That's me jumping on the mouse. Helen Cuthbert, please. Hi, Helen. Welcome to the Planning Committee. You have 5 minutes when you're ready. When you've got 30 seconds to go, if you get there, the Democratic Service Officer will remind you. Thank you when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Firstly, we're obviously incredibly pleased that officers are recommending approval for the application based on the evidence that's been provided to them. Can you? Firstly, this is not a betting shop, and I'll go into the differences, but it's a very, very different proposition. The proposal before you complies with national policy requirements and your local policy requirements. AGCs, adult gaming centres, are where people come in to have a game of bingo, principally, and enjoy their pastime in convenient and safe locations. They do not provide the fixed odd betting terminals, which are synonymous with betting shops, and nor do they sell alcohol. This is reflected in the average customer stake, which is 30p or 40p. The maximum stake in AGCs is £2. That compares to a betting shop where the maximum stake is £50. So it's very, very different. In addition, partly to do with this, the customer base is far more female, so it's about 50% women, 50% men. The vacant takeaway has not been in use since July 2023, so nearly a year of vacancy. The change of use wouldn't impact on the existing retail provision in the centre, and there are no other AGCs in the local centre. It will bring a vacant unit back to use, increasing footfall and generating linked trips. So when you go to the AGC, you can do your shopping as well. And as we've heard, there are many, many misconceptions about these AGCs and how they operate in practice. So it's important to understand they're not noisy. The games appeal to individuals rather than big groups of people. They're strictly controlled in the way they operate. As I said, they don't serve alcohol, and they operate a Think 25 entrance policy. And I think it's really important that the council's pollution team and the police are happy with the conclusions of the noise and activity assessment, and they've based that on the existing operators also within Peterborough. The building is vacant, requires investment, and the applicant is committed to that and has the new shopfront approved. That's an investment of between £50,000 and £100,000 in the unit. It is unclear how objectors argue that proposal would result in antisocial behaviour. There doesn't appear to be the evidence to support those claims. And statements made about problem gambling have no links to my client's operations, and the police have confirmed this. As I say, this is predominantly for individuals and couples, often shift workers who like to relax after their shifts. And due to the type of customers, evening numbers are low, generating low levels of noise. The evidence before you shows that the proposals represent a policy compliant scheme, and we hope that members can uphold the officer's recommendation. If this is refused, I think the most likely scenario is that a takeaway would reopen, which in my view is a greater attractor of late night noise and disturbance than an adult gaming centre. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, any questions, please, for Ms. Cuthbert? Councillor Bond.
Thank you again, Chair. So you mentioned bingo. Just for my own clarification, is that the only kind of activity that will be happening there, or there are others?
There are 2 or 3 types of games that are available. The slot machines, but with low stakes. and also tablets with bingo games on them. So it's a little bit like going to a bingo hall, but on a much smaller scale and with a tablet rather than somebody calling out the bingo in a bingo hall.
Anybody else? Councillor Antunes.
We heard reference to a study which references additional crime, etc., associated. You state there isn't. Do you have a reference that you can make?
Yeah, I think the report that the objector referred to, Mr. Hussain referred to, was in relation to betting shops. It's a very different type of stake and a very different attractor of customer base. I don't have a report that says there are no problems at all associated with the adult gaming centres, but in terms of the evidence before you and the police, and they're based on the existing ones in Peterborough, so local examples, there's no evidence of any additional crime.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had an empirical independent study which, again, could counter
I don't
one
think
that was
I don't
tabled.
think one's been prepared, to be honest.
Okay. I just have one other item. Gambling can be addictive. From a personal perspective, I do know a family member who was. Do you work with any agencies like the NHS Mental Health Trust to monitor possible, let's say, addicts and make sure that they don't frequent?
Councillor Antunes, they're totally immaterial questions.
Is that not relevant?
It's not relevant to your decision as to whether or not they provide any
Apologies,
gambling
Chair.
counselling. No,
Sorry.
it's fine.
Yeah.
You're new and I understand it, but I have to then also tell you that that cannot make your decision whether or not they provide that service.
Understood.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
You're welcome to answer it, but you mustn't use it for your decision.
Well, I was going to say that it's part of the training with people who work in the premises, and it also is very much something that is covered by your licensing committee and planning committee.
Yep, that's what I was going to say, because it'll be a licensing thing, so that's perfect. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? Councillor Skipstead, yes.
I have a couple of questions. So you're saying it's only £2, but what could somebody spend in the course of, let's say, a few hours? How much would they be able to actually spend while they're there?
I mean, it's not dissimilar to the amounts you'd spend in a pub or in a restaurant. It's up to you how much you want to spend, but the length of time you spend there, an hour and a half, is equivalent really to what you spend if you're going out for the evening to a restaurant.
Okay, and if it's so, why is it only for over 18s? What's it about the shop that makes it just for over 18s?
There are two different types of category. There are family entertainment centres and adult gaming centres, and it's to do with the type of games that are offered. Obviously, the government want to carefully control what children are exposed to, so my clients do operate family entertainment centres as well, the sort of thing you see more likely to see on the seaside. So it's just to do with the type of offer.
Sorry, I have another question. Okay. Why would you think that a takeaway would be noisier? Because normally people just come in and fetch food and go off. They don't hang around, sort of just wait inside and then they go off. And usually they're not open for 24 hours, are they? So
but this particular one has a 24-hour that has no restriction. And from my experience, I am a bit older now, but we used to go quite often after we went to the pub to the takeaway, and you'd lead to that sort of levels of group activity and picking up a takeaway at that time of the evening, which is not going to be the case with an AGC.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? Councillor Iqbal, sorry.
You said there's not going to be no drinking inside the premises. Can you guarantee there's not going to be no drinking outside?
I couldn't offer a guarantee such as that. It's not served inside. I don't think it would attract any on-street drinking any more than any other high street use would. A barber's shop, a hairdresser's. I don't see why there'd be any other expectation of that.
Is that? Yeah.
Got another one as well. You said they're going to spend 50 to 100,000 pound on the unit, but if they're going to be doing £1 bets, what's the profit in that? That's what I'm confused about.
That's going to be immaterial as well, I'm afraid.
Oh, sorry.
Because how much you make is if it fails, that's your problem, isn't it? And we can't decide whether it passes or fails. I would think if I was to hazard a guess, you wouldn't do something like that if you didn't think it was going to make money. You'd probably tell me different.
I only represent them on planning. I don't know the detail of all the financials, I'm afraid.
Right. Okay, anybody else? No, questions all done. Thank you, Helen, for that. If you'd like to return to the public gallery. We'll move on now to the next stage, which is, as I said earlier, questions for officers, legal officers, highways, etc. if you need to. So who'd like to ask any questions on that? Councillor Skibstead.
It's in the report, and there's a sentence which I don't quite understand. It talks about having operational management plan, and that's needed to manage the 24-hour aspect of it to make sure that it's quiet outside. But it says on page 23, it should be noted that the existing unit has no operational management plan in place, nor restriction to the opening hours. Therefore, the proposal greater manages against associated noise. I don't understand what that means. Doesn't make any sense to me. The proposal greater manages against associated noise and customer behaviours. First, it says it's no plan, and then it says something about greater manages. Can someone explain that?
You mentioned page 23, but there's not 23 pages in the officer. Are you referring to the noise assessment the agent submitted?
Second paragraph, page 7.
Oh yeah, sorry. Second paragraph. Yes. That was the first noise assessment they submitted. And then they submitted a revised version. But by the time that was sort of dealt with by us and then consulted on, that was when the report was generated. So it's all in the update report. So there's a condition on the operational management plan that's been submitted. It's been agreed by pollution control. It's been agreed by officers, and it sort of sets out sort of like timings, people hanging around outside, staff training in terms of removal of noisy customers, for example. So, and that's been secured by condition. I think it's C4 or C3, sorry. Yeah, and the police are happy as well. Sorry, they've submitted their comments on it.
Would there be a member of staff there at all times to manage the customer behaviours? Is that what they're saying?
There's always one member of staff on at all times, and then it should be noted about they've got like a lockdown procedure. So between the hours of, I think it's 10 and 6, they lock the front entrance and sort of manage who can come in and out. So again, that's to avoid any unwelcome visitors at that sort of time of night. But yeah, it's all that they've got in the noise assessment operational management plan. It sets out clearly the measures the company takes, and then their sort of company policies and values that sort of help with that sort of management practice.
Anybody else? Questions for officers? Councillor Bond.
Thank you again, Chair. So it's a two-part question. The first is, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one. There's nothing we can do to limit drinking outside the facility or premises, is there? There's nothing at all.
That was sort of fall outside the remit of this proposal. Sorry.
Yeah,
but the licensing for this unit is separate. That'd be at a separate committee, I assume, later down the line.
Oh, okay. So I assume my next question will then as well, but I thought I'd ask. There's nothing we can condition to stop the consumption of alcohol. I'm assuming again that goes to licensing inside the premises.
I think licensing, yeah, would cover that, but you'd have to ask the agent, sorry, but I think from the report it said the alcohol sales were limited inside, or there is no alcohol inside. I think it's just like soft drinks and.
Okay. So I meant in terms of people bringing stuff off the street into the premises.
I don't think that would be allowed through company policy. Like
okay.
Sort of other venues, there'd be like a no alcohol restriction in the workplace.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Anybody else? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald.
So then I'll return to the question, Connor, LP16. Obviously, the councillors and the objector mentioned, although not specifically with the objector LP16, but you can only quote development proposals would contribute positively to the character and distinctiveness of the area. Won't go into the rest of it. So you clearly felt it doesn't breach that policy. I'd just like to ask you why you feel that, because the ward councillor says different. I'm assuming that's what he means.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So in terms of LP16, it mainly deals with, I guess, the sort of the external arrangement and any impact on the character and street scene. So that was more or less assessed, and well, it was assessed under the full application for the external alterations to the shop front. So I guess from our view, we're solely looking at the change of use, so the operation internally, and we felt that this type of use wouldn't negatively impact within the wider setting of the area. It's like an LP12, it's a defined local centre. These commercial businesses, they're very common. And then in terms of policy and national guidance, there's nothing that would sort of be contrary to LP16 or LP12.
Okay, Chair, if I may just follow up. So,
Yeah.
so Connor, I suspect, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, that they will feel, and we don't have a cumulative policy in alcohol or in places like this, but I also heard there isn't one anyway in this area in a adult gaming centre, that I just want you to confirm the council have no policy, nor could we restrict this because there is nothing to stop a business like this opening in planning policy terms on moral grounds. Because I hear about gambling and it's a sin and we shouldn't allow it. That's fine, you can have that view, but what I'm asking, we have no powers to stop it on that basis. We cannot moralize about businesses like this.
Yeah, agreed. There's no policy that restricts like the proliferation of adult gaming centres or any sort of type of that use. LP12 sort of outlines the principle about supporting, regenerating, and attracting businesses in the local centre, increasing footfall, etc. So promoting more vibrant communities. So in terms of policy items, you'd bring back a vacant unit into use. There'd be no negative impact from the shop front. The studies supported by the agent showed that footfall can be likewise the same or greater than other commercial units that might fall under a separate use class. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Phil.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to build on what Connor was saying there. So policy LP12 is very clear that local centres, the vitality and vibrancy of local centres needs to be maintained. And it talks about if you're going to have anything other than shops, they've got to keep that vitality going in terms of footfall, number of customers. And that could mean uses like this, where you've got people coming and going. The LP16 is mostly to do with built development, but there is criterion H talks about places that are safe and designed to minimise crime and antisocial behaviour, taking into account secured by design principles. That's where we've got sort of the police's view, and subsequently a management or operational management plan has been submitted, which has been okayed, if you like, by the police, and we're satisfied that that, together with the nature of the use itself, is enough to pass that policy. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Skipson, had your mic on. Councillor Jess, I didn't know if you were going to come back on.
Nope, sorry.
That's all right. Councillor Skipson then.
So following on from that, I understand you can't use a moral ground, but we're talking about health and well-being, and that's LP7. Does the development promote and support the enhance the health and well-being of the community? Can you tell me in what way it does that, a gaming shop?
I think LP policy LP7. I think it sort of deals with more larger residential schemes and that sort of aspect. But in terms of the application itself, we've referenced the National Planning Policy Framework, so the NPPF, and there's no adverse, I guess, like concerns or matters from this operation of this unit that would sort of impact on health and well-being. I guess it's been raised that gambling and morals can come into play, but that's more of a personal matter than rather a planning reason as to why we would refuse on sort of health and well-being grounds.
Just thinking in terms of addiction, we're talking about addiction and those kind of things being quite addictive.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't necessarily something that's healthy for a community.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, we have to look at the national picture here. So gambling is allowed nationally. It's not illegal. It's licensed and controlled, as is consumption of alcohol and things like that. So policy LP7 can't be used to say no, we can't have any of these things because they potentially have undesirable. They can have undesirable side effects, addiction, etc. So unless we've got a policy in the local plan that specifically limits certain types of uses, I think any reason for refusal based on LP7 would not stand up at appeal. That policy has to be read in conjunction with the whole local plan. So you have to look at the plan as a whole, and it's designed to ensure that as much as we possibly can with new developments, we build in things that promote a healthy lifestyle.
Okay, anybody else? Anything? No? Right, so that's the end of the questions to officers. And we'll now move to the debate. Who would like to start us in debate, please? Councillor Warren.
Yeah, so with this debate, obviously I've listened to the objectors and I've looked at the objections from the police. At the moment, I've not seen any strong arguments to against this. We have obviously got a moral argument here, but we are looking at planning, and I've seen no objections on a planning policy standpoint from the police or from the objectors to say that we can't not reject this one. So we have to, I feel like I have to accept this plan application because we have not had the argument against planning policy.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. We have to go make a decision on what's in front of us. We've heard about it could attract antisocial behaviour. It could make increase crime rates, but there's no evidence that it was. The police has got no issues with this application. Talk about a survey up in somewhere else, but that's, to me, it's irrelevant to this particular site because we have no surveys done in this particular site. It is policy compliance with the council's policies. One of the policies mentioned was the vitality of the local centre, and it was bring people into the local centre. So I'm minded to go with the officer's recommendation and grant this application.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Anybody else? Councillor Fitzgerald.
It is tempting to dwell on matters not relevant to planning policy. So it's always difficult because you empathise with the objectors. The applicant is trying to earn a living. What they spend on it, what they do with it is a matter for them. If they lose their shirt because they spent too much, that's a matter for them. The business is a legal, lawful business. It is not for us to judge what business they are in, providing it is legal and lawful. Today, there's been a lot of information put forward from all parts, which says to me more detail with training for members, by the way, some are new, that because we've heard a lot that's not relevant, it does take time. I'll be supporting the application, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Bond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to agree with everyone that's already spoken before, as much as perhaps whether you agree, disagree with this kind of subject, we're here to make a planning decision. The planning things and policies that have been raised, I think they've sufficiently been covered within the documents themselves, and I likewise will be supporting the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Anybody else want to speak? Want to enter the debate? No. I'll add my bit then. Well, it's hard not to be moved really by the passion of Mr. Hussain, a local resident, and the local councillor, Councillor Mahmood, has stood up for his area gallantly, as he should do as the ward councillor. However, we're here as a planning committee, and the planning committee makes decisions based on rules and law, and we still have to take into account people's feelings, of course. But, you know, I'll remind everybody, certainly the new ones, that under planning, the default is yes, unless you see a reason for no. So it's not for us to make the reason no, it's for the people that address us to make that reason. Police, who are a statutory consultee, have no problem. The pollution team, once things were changed to cover their issues, then withdrew their objection. The operators have put forward a management plan to keep the place safe and running correctly, and it complies with all national and local policies. Yes, it must be remembered that this already has 24/7 permission, so it could take away. It could be anything. So that part running 24/7 is not something that we can concern ourselves with. And of course, even with the management plan, they have restricted the hours. I think it's between 12 and 6 or something like that, to lock down so only people they let in and let out. So there is control. Based on that, I can't see any reason, certainly not a big reason, to reject this. I think that there is nothing. There's nothing really apart from effectively how people feel it will be, rather than any fact, any evidence. We've got a place just down the road, no evidence put forward that that's causing problems. So that would have been an ideal thing to refer us to, that down the road are having loads of trouble, and have police back that, but they didn't. So that one's gone. So in effect, unless somebody enters this debate that changes my mind, I'm going to be recommending we go with officers and support this application. Anybody else? No, then can I ask for a proposal, please? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. My proposal would be to go along with the officer's recommendation to grant this application subject to relevant conditions.
Okay, do you have a seconder on that? Councillor Warren. Okay. Committee, we've got a proposal which has now been seconded, and we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour, please. And against? And any abstentions? Don't think there will be, will there? No abstentions. So if you could count the result, please.
Thank you, Chair. That was 6 for and 2 against.
Therefore, in that case, the application is approved. Thank you very much, everybody. Just give us a few minutes just to set up for the next item, which will be the Castor Primary School. I'll ask our officer Karen It, please, to introduce the item when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the application site is for the school field of Castor Church of England Primary School. The school is located within the conservation area, and it's also a scheduled monument site. The school field is located to the west of the school and sited along Peterborough Road. To the north of the school field is a Grade 1 listed church, and to the east of the school field is a Grade 2 listed building called 26 Peterborough Road. So this is a picture of the existing main gate and the fencing on the southwest boundary. And this is the location of gates A and B, which we'll show you on the plans in a later slide. This is the existing fixtures that are on the inside of the wall at the moment. So following advice from the fire safety officer from the property compliance team, which is part of Cambridgeshire County Council, the school had identified requirements for additional security measures to protect the safety of pupils. It was found that the existing wall could be easily climbed, and that whilst the existing fencing was likely to intended to prevent items going into the road, it would not deter people getting out or intruders coming in. And due to the space between the wall and the fence being accessible and the struts which can be easily climbed. Furthermore, there's a significant gap at the bottom of the existing main double gates, which a child has already attempted to go under. I'll show you a picture of the gate in a moment, but this is the section of the unfenced section at the moment on the northwest boundary. And this is the existing main gate. There's a gap at the bottom of that gate at the moment, which is where the attempt had happened, unfortunately. So this hopefully is something that they've done to address it. You can see on the ground level behind the gate slopes upwards, which is why the gate was installed slightly higher to enable the gate to open inwards. They can't open outwards for a highways reason because we don't want them to obscure the pavement to the front. But yes, they do open inwards. So you've got the existing gate on the south boundary. The proposal itself comes along from, I don't know why I'm pointing, sorry, the southwest. Where? Oh, have I got one?
I want to set up so you can, it does help on your mouse.
No, it doesn't show it. Look. Sorry, it doesn't work. It doesn't show. So, so the proposal is for a 1.85 mesh fence. You've got two gates to the northwest boundary of the school playing fields, and it also includes the modification of existing gates and replacement fencing to the southwest boundary. The proposed upgrade of the fencing would ensure the safety of the children within the school and also improve security to prevent unauthorised access into the school. The proposal would include removal of the existing fencing along the southwest boundary and its replacement with a slightly taller world mesh fencing. A new section of fencing and two pedestrian gates would be added along the northwest boundary. All new fences and gates would be set behind the existing stone wall by 100 mm. The existing wall and gates are all being retained. So the existing main set of gates would retain with the additional infill panel. Oh, actually, do you know what? That's the next one. There you go. So in terms of the existing gate, the black set of gates that you saw, they're hoping to put an infill panel to the bottom of it. It's 150 mm welded to the bottom on the hinge, and this would allow the gates to continue to open inwards as existing with the panel folded up, and then to fill the gap between the ground and the bottom of the gate when closed. This is the proposed fencing that would be used. The specification for that is the panel sizes are 1730 mm and in height and 2,500 mm in width. They do have vertical barbs of 30 millimeters on one end, but these can be positioned either at the top or the bottom. So that's the new gates that's being proposed on the northwest boundary. So there's two of these. Gate A would be 1,200 millimeters by 1730 millimeters, and gate B would be 1,500 millimeters by 1730 millimeters. So as you've read in the report, there is a point in regards to the Castor Neighbourhood Plan. So Castor Neighbourhood Plan CH1 regards viewpoints, and Map 2, which shows the viewpoints, what the policy protects. The Castor Neighbourhood Plan CH1 requires sensitive and locally distinctive designs, amongst other things, that the proposal would demonstrate that they do not obscure negatively or impact the views of the church, with reference made to Map 2, which indicates the locations from where the views of the church are mostly important. So further to that, Castor Neighbourhood Plan Policy LCU4 seeks the protection of the village's archaeological, sorry, I can't say that, and historic features. The reference viewpoints in CH1 Map 2 are a significant distance from the church rather than close proximity. The views from the reference viewpoint would not be impacted by the proposed fencing. The site location, due to the site being a scheduled monument location, as well as being adjacent to the grade listed buildings, we have consulted Historic England, and the council's archaeologist has also been consulted, and they've both stated no objections. We have had an objection from the council's conservation officer, which advised that the harm was considered less than substantial at the lower end of the scale. So local plan policy LP19, when read together with paragraph 208 of the NPPF 2023, requires that any less than substantial harm to the significance of the design heritage asset of a setting should be weighed against public benefit. In respect of this proposal, there are significant public benefits, including enhanced security for the school and safety and welfare for its pupils. The public benefits are considered to outweigh very limited degree of less than substantial harm, and that the proposal would cause over and above the existing situation. With regards to the trees, we've had no objections from the tree officer, as the revised ARB method statement and the tree protection plan has been accepted, and we have got conditions to ensure that the trees will be protected during the installation. And this also involves hand dug holes, and the fact that the pruning and cutting of any roots larger than 20 millimeters in diameter needs to be carried out under supervision of a arboriculturalist. So in summary, the proposal would not result in adverse harm to the existing boundaries of the site. It would not result in harm to the trees, and the less than substantial visual harm is outweighed by the public benefits of the school for the security of the school and the safety of its pupils. And as such, officers are recommending that this is approval. In the update report that has been done, we have noted that I did make an error, that I stated that Glinton Parish Council called this in, but it's actually Castor Parish Council. Apologies. And since the main report was written, so we have got comments from Historic England as well. Like I said, have got no objections. They've also already granted scheduled monument consent for the works as well, so that's in place. And in addition, it was noted that on the proposed fence line plan, that the specification for the fencing was incorrectly labelled, so that's now been corrected. And as per the update report, we did receive a further objection from a member of the public who wasn't able to attend today's meeting. Now, I have addressed these on a question by question basis, because a lot of this was also raised during the site visit by Glinton Parish Council, Castor Parish Councillor. My apologies. So I have addressed the questions in hand as well. And you've got a copy of that. I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Karen. We have one person registered to speak, and it's Councillor David Shaw from Castor Parish Council, who's already made his way to the table. He's done this before a few times. Welcome again, David, to the meeting. You'll have 10 minutes when you're ready to address committee.
Is that working all right? Right. Good afternoon, Chair, Councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm David Shaw, a Castor Parish Councillor. There are two parts to what I want to say today. Firstly, I want to explain why the Parish Council objects to the application. And secondly, if you consider that the benefits of the proposal still outweigh those objections, then I want to suggest some potential improvements. So firstly, why are the Parish Council objecting? Before going into the details, I would like to emphasise very strongly that the Parish Council is immensely concerned about the safety of our children at the school. We want them to be safe. Our children have been going to this school since 1956. Our reason for objecting is that there is a very good wall around the site that has provided good security since 1956 for 68 years. It is a strong wall that has not fallen down. It is robust. It clearly signals that it is the boundary of the school. Teachers can give a very simple message to pupils: do not go over the wall. Your planning report explains that the wall is about 1.5 metres tall. It is therefore higher than the average height of 10-year-olds and a lot higher than 4 to 9-year-olds. So for the pupils at the school, it truly encloses the playing field. It is capped with cock and hen capping, which is extremely uncomfortable to climb over. We have not had any problems with security in terms of unwelcome people climbing into the school, over the walls, or of pupils escaping over the walls for this period of 68 years. The attempted escape last year under the gate fronting Peterborough Road was not fully successful because the gate did its job just, though clearly it could do with some improvement. We agree something needs doing. And the existing fence along the Peterborough Road frontage does perform a very useful purpose in terms of stopping footballs, etc., from being kicked into the road. But we cannot understand why it now seems necessary to fence the children in when we have had a perfectly good wall for 68 years. A very important point about security is always the natural surveillance of the site. This site is naturally surveyed by pedestrians along Peterborough Road, by adjoining houses, some of which look directly into the playing field, by the church itself, and by people walking on the drive up to the church. That is the background. What do planning policies say? Firstly, in favour of the fencing. So if you wanted to approve this. In this case, the policies in favour of the application are stated in the committee report as being para NPPF, para 99 and LP policies 2 and 30, along with our NP policies. I will not read these out in detail, but they are all very general and simply support educational use. They say nothing about school fencing and nothing about safety. In my view, NPPF para 96 is the much more relevant one. It is the part of planning policy which relates to safety. It states that planning policy should aim to achieve healthy, inclusive and safe places and beautiful buildings. That's all in one sentence. Subparagraph B goes on to explain that places should be safe and accessible so that crime and disorder and the fear of crime do not undermine the quality of life or community cohesion. For example, through the use of beautiful, well-designed, clear and legible pedestrian and cycle routes, and high-quality public space, which encourage the active and continual use of public areas. I would also point out, at this stage, government advice on security in schools. This states your security policy should reflect the balance between maintaining an open and welcoming environment for learners, parents, and the wider community, and protecting them from harm. Plans and supporting procedures should be based on a realistic assessment of the threats relevant to your school or college. I would emphasize that these policies that support the fence are about a balance between safety and an attractive environment. So, if you wanted to refuse the scheme, what about the planning arguments against it? The principal one is that the site is in a conservation area and is immediately adjacent to a Grade 1 listed building. The proposal is a significant length of modern fencing that harms the views of the church from public roads and footpaths, a church described by respected commentators among the finest 100 parish churches in England. It is older than our cathedral, 900 years old this year. The church's trust describe it as one of the finest churches in East Anglia. It has some of the finest decorative carving seen on any Norman church. Your own, not the parish council, Castor Conservation Area appraisal from several years ago states consent should not be given for removal or modification of any boundary walls. They are a major element of the conservation area. In addition, I would bring to your attention your own policy, WA1, in your supplementary development document, Design and Development in Selected Villages. This includes Castor, but this part is from the introductory bit. The policy explains that the treatment of boundaries is crucial to achieving high-quality street scene and states, quite simply, that planning permission will not be granted for development which involves the erection of fences or other structures that replace or supplement existing walls. There are therefore very clear policies that would support a refusal. That is my case against it. That choice is going to have to be yours. But I now wish to move on to my second part. If, in your opinion, the proposed fencing is necessary and outweighs the harm, I would like to make 3 points. Firstly, the proposed design of the front gate with a bottom hinged flap to overcome the difference in levels is baffling. Apart from the fact that no one has successfully yet escaped under this gap, if a new attempt is made, then all you do is lift up the flap and go under. Surely much simpler to just raise the level of the ground 6 inches. That's all you need to do. Raise the level of the ground 6 inches and you will resolve the problem of the gap under the gate. That could be a condition. Secondly, I would like you to consider how wildlife and litter is likely to become trapped between the fence and the wall. The gap is 100 centimetres, 4 inches roughly. Litter will get down there for all sorts of reasons. Blackbirds, thrushes, who knows, whatever can get down there. You need to have a proper means of clearing the litter out from underneath the fence. If this is the wall and you've got the fence going down to the ground, how do you clean that out? It'll stay there for years. So you need a proper thought about how that litter is going to be got out from that gap. And thirdly, and I appreciate this is likely to be slightly contentious, but the large self-sown sycamore tree on the north side of the playing field obscures views of the church, one of the most historic and beautiful buildings in Peterborough. We think this tree should be felled prior to installation if you allow the fence to be erected. Why fell a tree? Well, because the tree seriously obscures the magnificent views of the church from its most common viewpoint along Peterborough Road. For the 900 years that the church has existed, this tree has obscured the view for the last 15 or so of them. At some stage, as it gets older, then branches will have to be removed to ensure the safety of the children beneath it. The removal of this one tree will open up the view again and importantly, take one's eyes away from the fencing. And just to be clear, the parish council likes trees. We planted
Sorry
lots
to
over the
interrupt.
past
You have 30 seconds.
few years and are currently in the process of completing a lease for PECT to use some of our land for a tree nursery. There are still 11 other trees on the site. So, over to you. We think it's a fine balance, but we would like you to preferably refuse the application and if not, consider very carefully the 3 extra issues I have raised. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Questions then from members? Councillor Rush.
Thank you, Chair. Could you tell me how high the fence that's there is at the moment?
The fence along the front there, we understand is about sort of that much lower than what they want to put up. So I'm going to call it about a foot. So the new fence would be about a foot taller, if that answers the question.
Yeah. So would that small amount of height in the fence obscure the church, which is up on a hill?
I think from that point of view, along the front there, probably not. The bigger concern is the bit going up the drive to the church, which adds fencing in a new location. So the answer to your question is that extra bit on the top is going to be pretty insignificant. It will make a difference, but I would go along with saying probably if you drive along there now and then it was implemented and you drove along in a year's time, you probably wouldn't notice much difference.
Do you know how long the fence that's there has been there now? That's there now.
I must admit, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I think it's somewhere around about 10, 15 years.
So as the parish council objected to it before?
I wasn't a parish councillor when it went up, but I understand that there was considerable concern. But the deciding issue then was the footballs coming over. I think that was the deciding issue. The footballs coming. I think some footballs came over one day into the road, and that was considered quite rightly dangerous. So it was the footballs.
I think you made a very dangerous statement about felling a mature tree just so you could see the church. I think that's very, very difficult to implement. Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rush. Anybody else? Please, Councillor Fitzgerald.
So, David, what makes you right and the school wrong? In the sense they see a need for a fence, and that's been increasing the case since incursions into school property by unwanted people, whether that's in term time or school time or out of time. What makes you right when they seem to see it's necessary? Because that's what it's about. They wouldn't have applied for the fence if they didn't deem it necessary. So on what expert opinion are you basing your view, or the parish council view, that it's not needed? Because you quoted a period of 50 years or something.
Yeah, I think basically because we haven't had any problems for 68 years. And I do appreciate that society moves on, but that's the basic reason. We've had no problems for 68 years. Yeah.
You could argue, though, that the schools that have had problems that have resulted in killings and deaths also never had problems prior to that. So that's what I would ask you to commentate on. Until it happens, it's never happened before.
I agree, but I haven't analysed where any of those deaths might be, whether they are in locations. Well, they're obviously in a different location to this, so the circumstances may be different. And do they have a wall which is as robust as ours? I don't know. So I think if there was no fence around the school, there would not be an argument to stop it going up. But there is a very significant and robust wall at the present time, is I think the main reason.
Final follow-up then. So, David, you don't think there would have been a risk assessment that would have been put in place in order to put this application forward So would you be prepared to, or the parish council, to go against that risk assessment if it was clearly stated why it was needed?
Well, I did ask, the committee report states that this request came from the fire officer. So I did ask why the fire officer, when it would appear that this is a security officer, a security issue and not a fire issue. The answer to that, and your planning officer may be able to, I haven't got the exact words that I was given by your planning officer, but it would appear that it's the fire officer who acts as the sort of informal advisor as to what should happen. And I gather that this near escape took place underneath the gate, which wasn't successful, and that led to a security review, which was undertaken by, I'm still not quite certain who, but it seems that it was the fire officer who made the final recommendations, which again, to us, is a slightly odd person to be recommending security. I would have thought a fire officer would usually say, take all the fences out of the way so I can get to the fire quickly. So that's a question I can't answer. Who actually made the recommendation? We've been told it's the fire officer.
I'm sure somebody will confirm, but it's likely that one of those emergency services just is the lead, but they will converse with everybody else. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But just please send others.
So we haven't seen no sort of detailed assessment.
Okay, Councillor Skipstead, please.
Yeah, I was just following on from that. I was just wondering whether there'd been anything in the Ofsted report around safety in the school.
I'm afraid I can't answer that one, I'm afraid. What I would say is that in discussing this at the parish council, we do have a couple of our councillors who liaise with the school, and in their discussions, they have not mentioned any specific requests other than what has come out of this latest review. But the honest answer is, I'm afraid I don't know.
Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, that is on. I just had a question regarding how would you address the concerns, or well, certainly what I saw during the site visit is that between that front gate and where the other wall starts, there's a bit of a gap where if you were really enthusiastic, you could probably gain access into the school. So wouldn't you say that a new gate would alleviate that problem and enhance the security of the school?
You're talking about this
Yes,
the side of this gate here.
Yeah, where the other one starts is about this much gap.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to jump through, you could. There's nothing stopping you. And likewise, jumping out. So wouldn't you say that a new fence would, alleviate that problem and, enhance the security of the school?
It could do. I think our view is that gate does need a bit of sorting out. As I've said, underneath needs sorting out. But we think that's an issue which could be resolved without putting all the fencing, in particular, up the side of the driveway up to the church, which is going to make such a difference to the character of the area. So yeah, quite happy to have things done to that gate to improve it. And indeed, the objection to improving the fencing along the front is not such an issue as the idea of putting it all the way up the drive to the church just starts to change the whole character of that church.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I've got no other names. Anybody else did they put their hand up for that? Didn't see anything else. Okay, fair enough. Right, we'll move. Thank you very much, Councillor Shaw. If you would like to return to the gallery. Oh, could you just turn the mic off on me while you're there? Just Press that. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so there's no other speakers on this particular item, so we're going to questions for officers for any clarification, etc. Councillor Rush.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed that we haven't got an agent here who we could ask questions, because I would like to ask questions about the fence and about the colour and the gate, but of course we've got nobody to ask that question to. And when I mentioned it to the officer on the site visit, she couldn't answer the question. So I'm very disappointed.
Do you have a question as well? I know you had a statement. I didn't know if you were going to ask me.
I think it says in the report that the fence was going to be black. Why not? I would say why not green, so it would blend in further with the trees and the playing field, and make it more environmental friendly, and not just say we're having it black because the gate's black. You could paint the gate green as well.
In terms of the assessment, it's not for us to design as officers. We assess what's been put in front of us. So the application in front of us has suggested of black fencing. If you feel that the application is grantable and you wish to condition for the fencing to be green, we can do that.
That's another one.
Carry on.
Another one which I don't think you'll be able to answer. In the planning application, there's only two sides of the playing field going to have the fence. The wall to the north is going to be left open, so I can't really see why we're doing two sides and leaving the north wall, unfenced, where people could easily get over. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry. Again, we're not the applicant. We can only assess what we've been given in front of us, and the proposal is for us to assess the two sides of the fencing. So that's what we can. We can't question why you're not having a third one. That's not within what we need to assess.
Well, I say that I'd like to have the agent here so we could question it.
Absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Antunes.
Hello, yeah. I was there on the site visit to look at the project. I have just 3 points. The issue seems to initially concern escape via the gate. The fence doesn't address that particular issue, so it seems an extra hurdle to cover. So looking at the environmental and visual aspects, from what I can see, would not a simple planting arrangement inside the wall, the hedge that would deter anyone getting close to the wall or getting over the wall, be sufficient, less impactful, and more environmentally friendly, and trimmed below the wall height? So
Sorry,
therefore we would.
Sorry, Councillor Antunes. As a chair, I have to come in again. As has been said to you by the officer, we can only look at what's been put forward. We cannot give the alternative. The alternative is something, you could say in debate if you thought that was a reason not to approve, but you can't ask an officer for an alternative.
Forgive me, Chair.
See where I'm coming from? Because that's not what's on that bit on this report. It doesn't say officers offered planting and it was refused. It was a case of we want a fence. Our job is yes or no.
I understand, Chair. Sorry.
So she won't be able to answer it. I'm only protected because she can't answer it because you can't answer it. She can't answer it. What are your other 2 points you had?
Apologies. Yeah, that's probably. I was simply making an observation from my perspective. I think am I allowed to make my observation?
Well, that's when you come to debate. You can't. This time is questions from officers to help you make your decision. So this period at the moment is if there's something that you don't understand that needs clarification, or something that's been said that you want clarification in order to make your decision, and this is the time to ask the people here those questions.
Forgive me.
Your opinion comes in debate. which you can have with all the rest of your colleagues.
Perhaps I should have phrased it as an option. Has an option study been undertaken? Perhaps that's a better question to have said rather than the fence. Has other options been considered?
Yeah, good question.
No, they simply they just put this fence forward, and this is what we've been considering this particular fence in.
Thank you very much, and apologies for
No,
misphrasing
this is
my
the
question.
place to learn as well. You can't teach all this. You've got to learn it as time goes on. I appreciate people who are not new still make similar sort of that, go down similar roads. But my job as a chair is to try and guide you back into not making a decision that could be easily appealed because it's unlawful, effectively. So it's similar to Councillor Rush's about the type of colour of the fence. You know, that's not necessarily something that that's not been offered. As quite rightly as the officer said, it's black, and that's what's been offered. That may make a decision for Councillor Rush one way or the other on colour, but we have to stick with the facts. And any questions you've got of officers, great, but they won't be able to give sort of like an alternative. That's not what's in before you. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Did you have anything else at all, Councillor Andrew? No. Who else? Put their hand up? Councillor Bond. I know I saw that hand.
Mr. Chair, so it's more for my clarification. So the current historic boundary wall, that's not going to be affected in any way.
Correct. The boundary wall and the existing gate is staying as they are. They're being retained, they're being kept.
Yeah.
There was also a suggestion of looking at having one of the trees cut down. I'd be interested to hear officers' opinions around that.
So there's nothing in this application that involves removal of that tree, so we can't consider that as part of this proposal.
It's the same thing, you see, because we're doing the same thing. We're making up the decision, and it's not about that. It's this yes or no, effectively. Yes, Councillor Joe.
So there's reference to the benefits of making the decision to grant against the disadvantages in terms of the historic aspects. What is not clear from the application is the justification for the fence. And as Councillor Rush said, there's nobody here to ask. So my question was, do you know, in your dialogue with the applicant, why this application came forward? Because if the benefit of it outweighs the harm, is that usual? Because we are talking about an unbalanced thing here again. I just wondered if anybody knows why. If you know, great. Otherwise, we can only go on what we might think, as was alluded to, and I'm assuming safety. I could be wrong.
So I can only obviously tell you what I know, what I've been told. So a health and safety assessment was asked for from the education team, and the guys that did it were the property compliance team that are part of Cambridgeshire County Council. They also do work for the education team. The person that happened to assess the site just happened to be the fire safety officer that was, that work as part of the same team. And they had identified that there were definitely security issues on the site, right. And they had suggested the, putting the fences and the upgrading of the fences in order to mitigate the issues that they identified. So because that was advised to the person that was looking after this site, hence this application has come forward from that.
Okay, well, as I alluded to, multidisciplinary teams, I would imagine, working within in that area. So I guess then there's a recommendation to do this for perhaps a number of reasons. Hence the school have put it in, because if they fail to do it and something did happen, then they would be held liable. Would that be a fair assessment of the rationale?
I think so, which is why we believe that the benefit does outweigh the harm.
Thank you.
Councillor Skipstead.
Quick question to Karen. It was just at one point you said the wall could be easily climbed, but has it ever been climbed either from the inside or the outside? Has that ever been observed?
It's not me that actually says the wall can be easily climbed. It was the officer from the property compliance team that assessed it. They have said that in their report that it could be climbed, so they deemed that to be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I just say a word, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we're given evidence to look at by an applicant, we have to make a judgment. Well, where is this coming from? Is it reasonable? And in this case, it's coming from a trustworthy source. I think we can reasonably say the education, or the council in its capacity as education authority, is the responsibility that uses evidence to make its decisions. So in that sense, we have to give reasonable amount of weight to the evidence that's been presented to us, and then obviously it's up to you as members of the committee to make your judgment as to whether or not you think these public benefits outweigh the degree of harm. And it is a balanced decision, so it's up to you as committee to make that call.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody else? Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll move to the debate. So now is your chance to give your opinions and ask your opinions of others. So how about Councillor Antunes? Would you like to start with your bit? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think that given that there has been no option study, my feeling, observations are this solution is an urban solution. I think an option study at least should have been undertaken to look at some more natural, low impact solutions. The fence does not address the issue, which was the attempted escape underneath the gate. I, in my opinion, feel that a soft planting solution inside the wall would prevent any children getting near the wall and thus prevent that. I think what was tabled here in terms of a solution addressing the ground level, having been to site, it slopes up. I think some, again, minimal impact works there would address potentially the means of escape underneath the gate. Ultimately, if we are looking at investing with minimal impact environmentally, visually, socially, that should be the preferred solution. We have a rural area with what I see potentially as an urban solution. My personal feeling is that would be a better solution that was tabled here, better use of resources and a better overall balanced approach than the current tabled proposal.
Okay, thank you. We're in debate, so anybody? Councillor Mahmood?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think primarily for me, it's about, I know that we're only assessing as it is the sort of long-term security of the school and safeguarding, and this fence potentially can provide that. So at this current time, I'm quite inclined to go with the officer recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Mahmood. Councillor Rush?
Chair, we had a very good presentation from Mr. Shaw, who outlined these reasons for objecting. But what we've got in front of us is, and it's been said, is safeguarding the children, which is the main thing that we have to do with schools. Like Councillor Fitzgerald said, that although that wall's been up for 68 years, something could be happening now. And then what would people say? Why didn't you do something about it? I think the benefits outweigh the harm for this. I did mention, I don't know whether we could do anything to try and get the colour changed, whether we could ask officers to discuss it with the applicants after the meeting to get it changed, perhaps to green to be more environmental friendly. I don't know if that's can happen. I know it's not, it doesn't mention it in the paperwork. I didn't know that we could go ahead with that. But I think we have to think about the children, the safeguarding the children. So I will be going with officer decision and grant this application.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Anybody else? Yeah, by all means, come in.
Just on to address that issue of the colour. So what's proposed here is black, although the majority of schools have this kind of fencing. It does tend to be green, and in our office, in the officer opinion, either green or black would be acceptable. And if you were minded to approve this, but you didn't particularly like the colour, you felt a better colour would, tip the balance to it being okay, then because that's only a minor aspect of the development, that could be addressed by condition, wording to the effect of, notwithstanding the submitted plans, details should be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority of the final colour of the fencing, and then we could look at what they come forward with, because there's many different shades of green. So if you just said green, it could mean anything. It could mean lime green or whatever. So that's one option that you might want to take if the colour was the deciding factor.
Okay, Councillor Rush, got your answer on that one. Okay, I've got Councillor Warren.
So when I look at this plan, I see this as going like what we're looking at is obviously children's safety against the loss of the view of the church. And when you look at the reports for children or loss of view, you look at what the conservation officer says, that there is no significant harm to the loss of view. Obviously, we're taking that with the Castor Neighbourhood to make sure that we protect the view of the church that what we have. But with all the evidence that's been submitted by Mr. Shaw and everything else, I see no reason why not to accept this application. I believe that children's safety and the safety of the children is much more paramount than the loss of the church when it has no significant harm. So therefore, I will grant the application.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Skibstead.
Yeah, I can. I'm minded to go agree with Councillor Antunes that I think the issue that came up was the gate, and I agree that suggestion about changing the level would be dealing with the problem with the gate. That's where the safeguarding issue arose. And I also can't, there's only two sides out of 3 that are being suggested to being fenced in. There's one side that isn't. So I don't understand how that can be a safeguarding issue when that side is still open to anybody getting in. So I think, yes, you need to adjust the gate and make that safer, but I don't see there's any reason to fence 2 sides and then leave one open. I don't see how that would improve safeguarding. So I'm minded to go against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
I will disagree with that. It's not for us to determine when and if another side of the school should be fenced in. That would be about access. It might also be about budget. There could be any number of reasons why they're not doing another side. We're talking about the 2 sides. I disagree with Councillor Antunes as well. We're not here to determine options, but I would bet that the people who did the report did case study a number of options. And I would imagine cost of planting or soft planting or vegetation would have been considered. But the option may have been the cheapest option, and it conforms with policy. So I don't agree with that reasoning. What I do agree is that David Shaw should perhaps, through the parish council, talk to the applicant about improvements. But he made some good suggestions about improvements, but we can't comment on those because they're not part of this application. But if there is other solutions, you can do that at a level between the parish council and the school, providing it still conforms with the planning permission that is given. So whether it's levelling of the ground, and by the way, I also disagree, Councillor Skip said, this is not about a gate. This is about a wider piece of work that has been determined by professionals that do this day in, day out, and their recommendations should be taken and implemented if we give them serious weight, which is what the planning officers were saying, that we must give due consideration to that advice. So I will be supporting the application, would also would suggest to Mr. Shaw that through the parish council they talk to the applicant and see if there are modifications that can be made that, quote, improve the outcome, but yet don't change the material decision on the planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sherald. Councillor Antins.
Sorry, could I just make a swift response? I think my point is that there wasn't an option study undertaken. I think that was confirmed by the officer. That was correct. So to say that, you know, that's not on the table now, if the professionals undertaken making a recommendation had looked at all of the options, then potentially there would be other things on the table and the reason why they were discounted. I'm simply saying that that's the situation. We've been presented with one proposal. There wasn't an option study undertaken. I feel that there is a less impactful solution to this that may work, but we don't know.
Just for clarity, we don't know that. We do not know that the people who prepared the report before presenting their final recommendation did not cover other options, but that's not for us to determine. We can only go by what's in front of us. Whether or not they did 10 options and presented one is irrelevant. The fact is, a fence is before us. That's what we must determine.
Anybody else? Are we all done? Yeah, Councillor Antins, could you turn your mic off for me? Could you turn your mic off for me, Councillor Antins? Thank you. Okay, well, if there's nobody else, well, I'd might go. You know, we have to take into account experts. But we do get a lot of experts address us, and that's the whole point, and consultees. And in this case, the property compliance team and the fire safety officer have been called in. Now, I would suggest, although I cannot be sure, that the fire safety officer would probably look at it from the point of view of trespass more than necessarily getting out. So I think I wouldn't tie myself in this how children get out. I think that's come up with a gate issue. I don't think it's ever been suggested they climb the wall. I certainly, and even the parish councillor David quite rightly said that you couldn't climb that when it's 4'6" and you're 4 foot. So I totally. But I think from my point of view, I'm approaching this from people getting in, trespass, vandalism, arson. And I think that's where your fire officer's probably coming from. The property compliance team will look at it from both ways. And I think the gate is that thing. But I get Councillor Skipster's thing that there's only two sides and one quarter has been left open with a gate next to it. So it's quite easy to hop over from a trespass point of view. Having said that, that's not what's before us, and that's up to the school. And it's not for us to say, well, you can't have that unless you have that. I agree with you, though. It seems a bit bonkers that you've not got that to go with it. Historic views. Well, we've seen the receptors on the map that was shown before us. There's no real effect on that. It would be passing on the footpath, etc., on the road where it could be seen or it would be seen. But there's already one there on the front road anyway, and a marked, I don't know, 8 to 12 inches. I don't see that makes any real difference, especially when it's covered in signage, which it is at the moment. You know, so there's a great big 2 signs on it. Tree officer, content. Conservation officer, less than substantial harm. It's existing fences a similar height. Historic England, no objections. These are all big players and big consultees, and none of them are particularly concerned. The concern bit is from the education department, effectively in the school, for the safeguarding of the school and the children. And that weighs heavily, and so it should. I don't think really there's much more for me to say. I certainly wouldn't want to see the tree loss. I don't want to do a bargaining. That's not what's before us. I understand where it's coming from, but I wouldn't even want to go there. You know, trees is what it is. It took years to grow like that. Let's preserve as many as we can, unless they're causing danger with branches, etc. But I see no reason. No, you know, I understand the parish council. I understand the concerns of putting something like that. It's not on the wall. It's near the wall. I understand the comments about litter, but that's for the school to find a way of taking the fence down or putting it a foot off the ground like they've done now, or whatever, to allow that litter to be taken out. I think it has to fall down for me on the safety of pupils, the safety of the school, and that trumps the others. I hope we can come up with some sort of colour scheme that we can give officers to do. You know, I think that's a fair comment from Councillor Rush, if they can come up with a better colour scheme, again in conjunction with the parish, if necessary. But I think the fence, it's got to, you know, is something that I think is the right thing to do, as is the gate modifications, and I will be supporting it when it comes to the vote. Councillor Fitzgerald.
I'm happy to make a recommendation, Chair, but it was remiss of me to not to say the ward councillors have not objected to this either. There's been no representation.
Well, there has, but the ward councillor did. It was Councillor Boyce, but the parish selected to actually speak to that. So.
Okay, it's just that it's not. I don't, in terms of the city councillors, I didn't spot anything in.
I don't think he messaged as a councillor. I think they put comments through parish.
This may be, was this pre-election, this application, by the way?
Yes.
Oh,
This
that's
has been going on for a while.
That's probably.
But he's parish councillor as well.
No, sure. I understand. Yeah.
But today it was a decision for the parish to come before us, or David to come before. Anybody else got anything to add? Councillor Fitzgerald.
I'm happy to make a recommendation
Yeah,
to approve.
just checking nobody else has
Sure.
got anything to enter the debate. Is a debate after all. They could disagree with me. Crack on, do what you want. No? Councillor Fitzgerald then for a proposal?
I'm happy to recommend approval, Chair.
Seconder, please. Councillor Mahmood. Okay, so we've got a proposal and a seconder. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Sorry, Chair, just quick, is that with the condition of the colours of the fence and the gate being conditioned with officers?
From a personal perspective, I mean, I couldn't care less whether it's black or green. I think in most cases, Chair, we normally let the team decide the final finish in consultation with the applicant.
Right, so your proposal is to go with it and allow officers
to determine the
consult
final
on the
colour,
colours.
which would be perfectly normal.
Yeah. Okay. Happy with that? So the seconder is still okay with that? Yeah. So we'll go to the vote then. All those in favour? Oh, by the way, sorry. It's me. We have colour cards. And I've been told off once and I don't want to get told off again. So please use your card. And against. Mr. One, is it? Yeah. Yes. And any abstentions then, based on that? Has everybody voted? I think we're going to have to go again because I don't think we're adding up right, are we? No. So it's 4, please. Can you hold them up? And you've got the against already? Yeah, so that adds up now. So Karen, for the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. That is 8 for and 1 against.
Okay, so in that case, the application is approved. Thank you very much, everybody. Good. We'll just have a few minutes and then we're going to move on to the performance information that will come through from Mr. Moore in a minute. And it's going to be presented by our officer Phil Moore for you to go through with Phil and ask any questions you see fit. Where did he go? Well, there's no decision to be made on this, and I'm not prepared to leave it. So he'll just join in, won't he? We're not voting on anything, so it doesn't have to be. Are we still quorum without councillor? We're still quorum, so and there's no vote as such. So carry on, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this shouldn't be very long. Very quickly then. So this is the appeals quarterly report for the period January to March this year. We've had 5 appeals determined in that time, and of those 5, 2 were dismissed and 3 were allowed. This is a slight change in the trend that we've had, which has generally been for appeals being allowed, the trend going down. So this is slightly up. However, this is only 5, so it's nothing to worry about. None of these were committee decisions, by the way. They're all delegated decisions. The overall record of performance on appeals is still very good, well above the baseline that the government sets. Of those appeals, the lessons to learn from them, issues of amenity of those that were allowed, they were generally cases where it was finely balanced. It wouldn't be unreasonable to go either way, and obviously the inspector in those cases had a different view to officers, but it does highlight a general trend which I've noted before at committee when we've done these reports previously, of planning inspectors when they're looking at issues of amenity, things like overlooking, loss of light, overbearing impact, that kind of thing, generally seem to be taking a looser view of what's acceptable than perhaps they did a few years ago. So that's something to bear in mind. And a lot of that is because of permitted development rights, which have been expanded. So there's loads of more stuff you can do without planning permission now that is a fallback position. The other lesson to learn from this quarter is concerns a Gypsy and Traveller site, a small site over to the east of Peterborough, out on the Fens. And this was a hearing, an informal hearing, and we lost the appeal. The appeal was allowed, and partial award of costs was awarded to the appellant. Gypsy and Traveller sites are always very complicated. There's all kinds of issues that come up with these. But the key lesson from this, the reason for the award of costs, was the inspector didn't think the council had given enough regard to government policy on traveller sites. There is a document which runs alongside the NPPF, planning policy on and traveller sites, which, yeah, the inspector didn't feel that we'd given that enough weight in the balance. Our planning policy on Gypsy and Travellers, LP10, is the lesson from here is the wording of the policy is not particularly helpful, because it talks about the council would be prepared to grant permission for sites in the countryside, provided there is evidence of need and that the intended occupants meet the national definition of Gypsy and Traveller. Now, we applied that policy as worded. However, the inspector was of the view, well, that's your planning policy. However, the government policy on Gypsy and Travellers is a very weighty material consideration, and we as a council didn't give that enough weight. And the upshot of that is, whilst our policy talks about provided there is evidence of a need, what we had done is we had put the onus on the appellant to demonstrate the need, whereas in fact there is a need has already been established in the latest Gypsy and Travellers accommodation study. Although it's an unspecified need, it doesn't say exactly, how many pitches are required. But the inspector was of the view, well, unless you specify that in your policy, they don't have to prove a need. The need's already there. And the other thing about evidence that the occupants meet the tests of Gypsy and Traveller, again, that was deemed to be not necessary, even though it says it in our policy. It's not necessary because we can we are capable of granting permission, but conditioning it to make it absolutely clear this site can only be occupied by Gypsy and Travellers. So it doesn't matter who the applicant is, that site can only be occupied by Gypsy and Travellers. So there's a few lessons there to bear in mind. And I think that's relevant because there are a couple of applications we've got in at the moment, Gypsy and Traveller sites, that may well come to committee. So these are things to bear in mind. So that's it, Chairman. Any questions? Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, of course. Any questions from anybody regarding that, Councillor Mahmood?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Phil, for that. I just wanted to ask about you've mentioned in the report here item 3.8 about the highlight of policy 23. In what sort of regard was that sort of highlighted?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So policy LP23, this is about special character areas, of which there are several within the city. And they don't carry the same weight as conservation areas, but they're deemed to be areas with a special character. And we have to pay due regard to that special character. However, there have been a number of decisions over the years where we've applied that policy and refused things on the grounds that they don't preserve the character of those areas, but inspectors have, in several cases, given it limited weight. They've been of the view, well, it's not a conservation area, so we can't afford it the same amount of protection as a conservation area. And they've tended to see the bar a little bit lower than perhaps what we have in the past. So it just highlights the limitations of that policy. It is an important policy. We have to give it due regard when we're making decisions, but we cannot set the bar as high as we can with, say, a conservation area.
Anyone else? A couple of questions then, please. First one is information like you just said about Gypsy and Traveller, where the inspector looks at it differently from a different point of view to what we did and disagreed. Does that get fed back into the new local plan? So as we adjust our new local plan, taking into account the comments of an inspector?
Yes, Chairman. The local plan is currently under review. So any lessons learned from the wording of the current local plan and inspectors' decisions will be taken into account with the new wording in the new local plan. Yeah, definitely.
A couple of other questions. Performance-wise, it's all in there, I know. I just wanted to see if you could bring it out for me. Our performance, there's a target where government become very concerned about our appeals and how many we have. There's a percentage, isn't there? And that percentage is what, something like 10%, is it?
Something like that. I couldn't tell you without looking at the document.
Right, that's right. And I'm right in thinking we're 1.37. So our performance is without being complacent, very good.
Correct. Yeah. We've had a good record, and it continues to get better despite a slight blip this time.
Okay. And none of those are actually committee decisions that we're talking about this time around.
Right. Yes.
Right. Okay. Fine. They're all delegated. Okay, that's fine. That's fair enough. Good. All right. I just wanted to clarify for my own need. Anybody else got any questions on that? If you could feedback, obviously, to the team for me, well done to keep up that performance. That's what we need. And obviously, from our point of view, because we had none, keep up the good work committee because we didn't get any either. So that's not to say we won't get one at some point. That if we run down do it the right way, use officers correctly, and take the information, we should always get the right. May not always be the decision that it could be appealed. There's nothing wrong with that, but the appeal bit is where if you've been unfair. If we've done all we can, it doesn't mean we have to accept or we have to decline. It's just whether we've been fair in our decision. So good. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention and your questions. All very good and good debate. And thank you, officers, for all your input and your efforts in this. And we'll see you at the next meeting in probably about 4, 5, 6 July anyway. 30th of July. There you go. So we'll see you in about 5 weeks. Okay. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.